The morning sun painted the sky with soft hues of gold and pink as Emma, a bright-eyed 8-year-old girl with golden curls, skipped down the sidewalk clutching her pink lunchbox. She was on her way to school, her heart light with the excitement of the day ahead. As she passed a small park near the school, she noticed a frail, homeless man sitting on a worn-out bench. His clothes were ragged, his hands weathered, and his eyes held a quiet sadness that tugged at her heart. He wasn't asking for anything, just sitting there, lost in thought. Emma slowed her steps. Something inside her whispered that she should do something. Without hesitation, she stopped, opened her lunchbox, and walked up to the man with a bright, innocent smile. "Here," she said, holding out her sandwich. "You look hungry." The man, startled, looked up at her. His name was Walter, once a proud man who had lost everything: his family, his home, his hope. He blinked at the small girl, unsure how to react. "Go on," Emma urged. "My mom makes the best peanut butter and jelly sandwiches." Walter hesitated, then took the sandwich with trembling hands. "Thank you, sweetheart," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Emma grinned. "You're welcome. I gotta go to school now, but I hope you have a good day." And just like that, she skipped away, leaving Walter staring after her, clutching the sandwich like it was the most precious thing in the world. Little did Emma know that her small act of kindness would set off a chain of events that would change both their lives forever. Walter sat motionless on the park bench, staring at the peanut butter and jelly sandwich in his trembling hands. It had been a long time since someone had shown him kindness, true, selfless kindness. His stomach growled, reminding him of how long it had been since he had eaten a proper meal. Slowly, he unwrapped the sandwich. The first bite was soft, sweet, and comforting, awakening something in him that had been dormant for years. Hope. As he chewed, memories flooded his mind. He hadn't always been homeless. Once he had a family, a job, a house. But a series of unfortunate events, a job loss, a financial crisis, the passing of his wife, had led him down a dark road. One day, he found himself with nothing and no one, but today, an 8-year-old girl had done what no one else had seen him. Not as a homeless man, not as a burden, but as a human being. With newfound determination, Walter made a decision. He couldn't keep living like this. He had to try, just one more time. The next day, Emma returned to the same park, her pink lunchbox swinging at her side. To her delight, Walter was still there. His eyes brightened when he saw her, and he gave a small, hesitant smile. "I saved you a cookie today," she said proudly, handing it to him. Walter chuckled, shaking his head in disbelief. "You're too kind, little one." Just then, a woman's voice called out, "Emma, sweetheart, there you are." Emma turned to see her mother, Sarah, walking toward her, concern in her eyes. She had been waiting outside the school and had come looking when Emma didn't show up right away. "Mommy, this is my new friend, Walter," Emma said cheerfully. Sarah froze as she took in the sight of the frail man. Her heart clenched. She had seen homeless people before, but had never stopped to talk to one. Yet, here was her daughter, without hesitation, treating him like an old friend. Sarah offered a polite smile. "It's nice to meet you, Walter." Walter, feeling self-conscious, nodded. "Your daughter is very kind." "She is," Sarah agreed, studying the man's worn-out face. A thought crossed her mind. Maybe we could do more. She turned to Emma. "Sweetheart, would you like to invite Walter for dinner tonight?" Emma's eyes widened with excitement. "Yes." "Oh, please say yes, Walter." Walter looked stunned. Are you sure?" he asked hesitantly. Sarah nodded. "Absolutely." Walter swallowed hard. It had been years since he had been invited to a dinner table. He felt a lump form in his throat, but he managed a small, grateful nod. That night would mark the beginning of something neither of them could have ever imagined. Walter sat at the dining table in Sarah and Emma's cozy home, feeling out of place, yet deeply grateful. The warmth of the house, the scent of a home-cooked meal, and the soft hum of conversation between mother and daughter made his chest tighten, and he had almost forgotten what it felt like to be part of a family. Sarah placed a steaming plate in front of him. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and buttered vegetables. Walter's hands trembled as he picked up his fork. "This looks amazing," he whispered. Emma grinned. "Mommy's the best cook." Sarah chuckled. "Well, I try." Walter took a bite, and tears welled up in his eyes. The flavors were rich, comforting, something he hadn't tasted in years. He swallowed hard and looked up. "Thank you. I don't remember the last time I had a meal like this." Sarah smiled gently. "You're welcome, Walter. Everyone deserves a warm meal." As they ate, they talked. Walter shared little pieces of his life before he ended up on the streets. He had once been a carpenter, building homes with his own hands. He spoke about his wife, the love of his life, who had passed away from illness. Emma listened with wide, fascinated eyes. "You build houses? That's so cool." Walter chuckled. "I used to. Haven't touched a hammer in a long time." Sarah studied him carefully. An idea began forming in her mind. Maybe Walter didn't just need food. Maybe he needed a second chance. That night, after Walter had left, Sarah sat at the kitchen table deep in thought. "Mommy, can we help Walter more?" Emma asked, hugging her stuffed bunny. Sarah sighed. "I was thinking the same thing, sweetheart." The next day, she made a few calls. Sarah had a friend, Mark, who owned a small construction company. He was always looking for skilled workers. "Are you sure about this?" Mark asked. "Taking in a homeless man?" Sarah's voice was firm. "He's not just a homeless man. He's a carpenter who lost his way. He just needs a chance." Mark hesitated, then sighed. "All right, bring him by tomorrow. We'll see what he can do." Sarah's heart leaped. That afternoon, she found Walter sitting on the same park bench. "Walter," she said with a smile, "how would you like to work again?" Walter blinked in disbelief. "Work? I have a friend who owns a construction business. He's willing to give you a trial, if you're up for it." Walter's throat tightened. For the first time in years, someone believed in him. He nodded, his voice breaking. I'd love that." Emma clapped her hands. "Yay! You're gonna build stuff again, Walter." Walter chuckled, wiping a tear from his cheek. He hadn't felt this hopeful in a long, long time. Tomorrow his life would change. The next morning, Walter stood outside Mark's construction site, his heart pounding. He hadn't worked in years. What if he had forgotten everything? What if they laughed at him? But then he thought of Emma's bright eyes, Sarah's kindness, and the second chance they had given him. He couldn't let them down. Mark, a broad-shouldered man with a no-nonsense demeanor, eyed Walter carefully. "All right, let's see what you can do." He handed Walter a hammer and some wood. "Build me a solid frame." Walter took a deep breath, then got to work. His hands, though worn, moved with practiced precision. The sound of hammering filled the air as he measured, cut, and assembled the wooden frame with the skill of a man who had done this all his life. When he finished, Mark inspected his work, nodding in approval. "Not bad. You've still got it." Walter let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Mark patted his shoulder. "You start tomorrow." Walter's eyes watered. "Thank you. I won't let you down." Emma was waiting for him at the park that afternoon. The moment she saw his smile, she knew. "You got the job, didn't you?" Walter laughed, a real, genuine laugh. "I did, kiddo." Emma threw her arms around him. "I'm so proud of you, Walter." For the first time in years, Walter felt like he was finally back on his feet. Weeks passed, and Walter proved himself to be one of the best workers at Mark's company. He was hardworking, dedicated, and grateful for every opportunity. With his first paycheck, he bought a new coat. With his second, he rented a small apartment. His first home in years. One evening, he invited Sarah and Emma over. The apartment was simple, but to Walter, it was everything. "Wow, Walter, you have a couch." Emma giggled, jumping onto it. Walter chuckled. "Yep, and a fridge with real food in it." Sarah smiled warmly. "You've come so far." Walter looked at them, his heart full. "I wouldn't have made it without you." Emma grinned. "You were always amazing, Walter. You just needed someone to remind you." Tears pricked Walter's eyes. Emma was right. He had been lost, but thanks to one little girl's kindness, he had found his way home. Months later, Walter had an idea. He visited the same park where he had once sat, hungry and hopeless. This time, he wasn't alone. He had bags of food and a plan that he approached a group of homeless individuals, offering them meals and, more importantly, a chance. "If you're willing to work," Walter said, "I'll help you find a job. Just like someone once helped me." Word spread, And soon, Mark's company started hiring more men who had lost their way, giving them the same second chance Walter had received. One day, Walter saw a homeless man sitting on the same bench he once occupied. He handed him a sandwich, just as Emma had done for him. The man looked up, confused. "Why are you helping me?" Walter smiled. "Because once upon a time, a little girl gave me a sandwich, and it changed my life. One act of kindness can change a life. Be that kindness."